Why can't there be multiple gods that we can believe in? And why can't there be multiple ways into heaven?
Good. There can be. But you see, what you've got to answer, ma'am, is why would you believe in heaven? Have you ever been there? Neither have I. So in light of the fact you've never seen heaven, why would you as a thinking human being believe there's a heaven?
I mean,
why?
Through the Christian faith, is there not the communication that if you do live by the faith, you are forgiven, you go to heaven?
Yes, but ma'am, my being convinced that I'm going to heaven is based on one thing: the trustworthiness of Jesus Christ. Because I've never been to heaven. So I don't know if there's a heaven or not from my experience. And I can promise you, Austin is not heaven. Okay? It's a very nice place, but it's not heaven.
Right.
Okay? So you see, ma'am, when it comes to heaven, you're going to have to trust somebody the same way I'm going to have to trust somebody. And the question is, why do you trust whoever it is you trust? So because Muhammad contradicts Jesus, and because Jesus contradicts the avatars of Hinduism, and because the avatars of Hinduism contradict Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, and because they all contradict Baha'i faith, you've got to be on the intellectual level of a cockroach if you say they're all saying the same thing. They're not, ma'am. They're contradicting each other. So either they're all wrong or one of them's right. And now you've got to study the Gospels for yourself, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and you've got to ask yourself, does the evidence point to Jesus being the truth? And if it does, trust him. But if the evidence is that Christ is a liar, you'd be a fool to trust him. Do not trust Jesus if the evidence is he's a fraud, he's a hypocrite, he's a liar. Don't trust him. But if the evidence is he's totally reliable, if the evidence is he really did die and rise from the dead, then you can trust him, and he's the one who promises heaven to everybody who puts their faith in him. A lot of my friends are atheist and agnostic, okay? And here's something that my atheist agnostic friends have to acknowledge if they're being intellectually consistent. Because they believe there's no heaven, no day of judgment, that has big implications for now, today. And the implication is what you and I do with our lives is ultimately meaningless. Why? Where are Hitler and Mother Teresa if there is no heaven and no hell? Where are Hitler and Mother Teresa? The same place. The fertilizer pit. They're decomposing. Which means, ultimately, it does not matter whether you are Adolf Hitler II or whether you're Mother Teresa II, because we're all going to the same place, the fertilizer pit. You see, Jesus says, no, there is eternity out there, and there's a heaven and a hell, and there's a day of judgment, which means the decisions that you make today are really significant. They really matter. And you are really valuable, because God wants you to live for eternity with him in heaven. And becoming fertilizer is not God's plan for you and desire for you. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much for raising that. Yes, sir.
There's been a couple issues of things that you've been saying that I have questions with, but I'm just going to do a quick short one. One of my main questions that I always have is just that, given what you touted earlier, a tri-omni God, a omnibenevolent, omnipotent, omniscient, just all-powerful, all-knowing, all-caring, how do you explain the existence of evil and suffering?
You bet. Very slowly, having to acknowledge I can't give you a complete answer. I do not know ultimately why God allowed evil, suffering, and death. But here's my first point. If you're an atheist or if you're an agnostic, what is your solution to the problem of evil and death?
My solution to the evil problem?
The solution. What is your solution to the problem of evil and death? If you're an atheist, if you're an agnostic.
I mean, the solution for everybody is just to be as good as possible. I mean, everybody should aim for being good.
True, according to their own definition of good, right?
Becoming, own definition good, whether it's objective good from God or objective good from another source.
Well, remember, the atheist or agnostic says either there is no God or I don't know whether there's a God.
Yeah.
So good is not defined by God if you're an atheist.
Yeah.
If you're an atheist, good is defined by your culture or by the power elite or by yourself or by majority opinion.
It could be just defined as good. Good just exists, whether God or not.
How can good just exist?
Good could possibly, because I don't know if there's a God or not. But I mean, if there is such a thing as a God that is out of time, like that is eternal, why can't other concepts like good just be out of time and eternal, just a thing that exists like God?
Okay. Sir, good is an intangible value. You cannot see good.
You can't see God either.
Exactly. You cannot measure good, right?
You can't measure God. It could exist eternally, just like it could just be God. It could just be God. It could not be just God. It could just be the existence of good and evil that just exists in the world. But given a tri-omni God who's all-powerful and all-caring, why evil and suffering exists doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, good. You hang with me and we'll go.
He's as powerful and caring as he says.
In order to understand goodness, there has to be a mind. This tree has no understanding of good. This cement has no understanding of good. See, good can't just exist. Because goodness requires definition. And it's an intangible value that you can't measure. You can't grab goodness. Which means you got to have a mind involved in defining what is good.
If we're going by that definition, then what is defining God?
Okay,
what
we'll
created
get to that.
God?
We'll get to that.
All the arguments you could give for God could also go for good, just as a general concept. It could just exist eternally out of time, unmeasurable.
No, sir. That's not fair. If God exists, God doesn't depend on anybody. If goodness as an intangible value exists, it depends on a mind to define it.
God would also be an intangible.
Obviously, that's right.
It could, like, coming from a different viewpoint, outside of trying to see where, the reasoning for things, you could say that it could be what we define as God, societally, could just be the existence of just that good, in the same context of eternal and timeless and all that. Like,
if there is no God, goodness is not eternal, because goodness demands a mind to define it.
Then
which means,
in giving that same argument, then what mind defines God? There would be something above him if something has to make him or define him.
No, God can be an eternal being without beginning, without end.
I don't think you see my point, because goodness could be the same thing.
You're not listening, sir.
You're giving goodness a different definition.
No, sir, you're not listening to me, and I don't appreciate it. I've told you flat out, and I think you're smart enough to get this point. Goodness demands some mind to define it. The tree, the cement, has no ability to understand goodness. You've got to have a mind. Do you see that, or do you disagree with me?
I think we're coming to different definitions of good, because then, there's still... Outside of that, though, given your definition of good, still, why does evil or suffering exist?
Forget my definition of good. Your definition of good.
I'm just saying, given yours, why does evil and suffering exist?
All right, all right,
You're
fine.
evading that part of the question.
We'll move on to that, okay? But, sir, I got a real problem with your thinking, all right? I don't think you're being honest with yourself. That's not fair. You know very well that I've cornered you totally, intellectually. You know very well that you cannot have goodness without some type of mind to create and define it. It's impossible. This does not define goodness. That does not define goodness. And that camera does not define goodness. And your glasses do not define goodness. Neither does your shirt, your pants, or your sneakers. You've got to have a mind to define goodness. Sorry, you have no option intellectually. This has nothing to do with God. It has nothing to do with Jesus. It has to do with simply thinking fairly. All right, moving on to next.
Okay, but
your point is, okay, but if this good God exists, why is there evil and suffering? It's real simple, sir. If an all-powerful God chooses to partially limit his power by giving you a free will, by giving me a free will, then if I go up to her, slap her in the face, and say, God made me do it, what am I? a liar, a total liar. God gave me a hand for a purpose, to respect this woman, to love this woman. But because I have a free will, I don't have to respect her, I don't have to love her, I can steal her backpack, I can smack her around, I can abuse her. And if anybody says, God made me do it, they are a liar, flat out. So, why does evil exist? Evil exists because God limited his power, he's all powerful, but he limited his power by choosing to give her a free will, me a free will, all of us a free will. Does that make any sense?
It kind of answers it for humanity, but suffering also exists just in the animals.
Good.
Like, why does a zebra deserve to get its throat crushed to death by a lion? Like,
Good.
How is that caring or just? Like, coming from a Christian standpoint, we have sinned as humans, coming from the Christian standpoint, so we are, we have free will and we can make mistakes and all that.
Yep.
But why have animals just, not have their perfect little ecosystem where nothing has to suffer and only humans suffer?
Very good. Now we're thinking, all right? So, Genesis chapters 1 and 2. God creates a good world. God created this and God saw that it was good. God created that and God saw that it was good. God created this and God sees that it's good. So when God created, he did a good job. No evil. But Genesis chapter 3 records how human beings rebel against God. And one of the consequences of human beings telling God, get lost, get out of here, is God honors our free will, takes a step back from planet Earth, and nature unravels. And so you're absolutely correct, sir. Animals suffer. I have suffered. We all will suffer. Not because God is sicking us, but because God created a world with free will, people with free will. We chose him to tell him to get out. When he gets out, chaos fills the gap. Genetic breakdown, death occur.
Because humans decided to reject God, God punished the animals.
One of the consequences...
It seems uncaring and unjust, given a triune God.
No, it's an issue of consequences. Who put Texas State together? Did they do it last summer?
Well, the consequence should go to the humans that did it. You don't punish someone else for somebody else's misdoing.
That would be a nice way for things to happen. But unfortunately, because I have free will, if you're a husband and I smack you around, it might affect how you treat your wife when you go home tonight. It might affect how you treat your kids when you go home tonight. You see, for me to think that, well, I've got free will and it's just me and it's just you, and there are no consequences to the way I exercise my free will, that's a lie. Total lie.
Well, how I would interact with animals is one thing, but how animals should interact with each other. Why suffering exists between animals, not from humans to animals, but between animals, suffering exists. Why are they being punished for suffering between themselves?
They're not being
punished. If they didn't do anything wrong.
You're correct. You're absolutely correct. They didn't do anything wrong. The same way, little babies that I have to bury didn't do anything wrong. But they're born into an unfair world where birth defects occur, and so babies die. Not because they've done something wrong. They have not done anything wrong. But they are born into an unfair, unjust, messed up world. Thanks for raising those issues. Yes, ma'am.
They're also born with original sin, though.
Okay, what does that mean? My good Catholic friend, what does that mean?
It means as a consequence of, correct me if I'm wrong, but as a consequence of Adam and Eve eating the apple, all the following children would be born with this original sin that would have been an effect of mankind previously, correct?
Okay, maybe.
And at least also the way I was brought up was that if you were not baptized or had your original sin reversed, you would not be able to make it to heaven.
Yeah, I totally disagree with that. I don't think there's any biblical basis for that.
But wouldn't, original sin be a spiritual birth defect?
Good. Ooh, now I think we're onto something here. Okay, so what on earth is original sin? Original sin is simply this. I am born with a readiness to sin factor. Doesn't mean that everything I do is evil. My atheist friends do a lot of good. They've got a conscience. But all of us have sinned. Every atheist, every agnostic, every Christian, Jew, Buddhist, Hindu, we all have sinned. Part of the reason we have sinned is because we're born with a readiness to sin factor. Let me give you an example. When I was 4 years old, I was in a sandbox playing, and my friend had the audacity to hurt me. So very naturally, I took up the metal truck, and I said, "Really?" Bam! Never seen that behavior modeled before, but I very naturally took up the metal truck, slammed it on my playmate's head, and it wasn't pretty. I am a sinner. That's my son over there, walking this way. He used to sit on a baby chair. I would put a glass of grape juice in front of him, and I would say, "Stuart, do not knock this glass of grape juice off this tray." And with a smile from this ear to this ear, he would backhand that glass of grape juice off the tray. He was born a sinner, same way as old man, me, was born a sinner. Now, what does that mean? It means we have a readiness to sin factor. But we cannot blame our sinful nature for what we do, because we still have a free will. So if I slap her and you say, "Wait a second, Cliff, what'd you just do to her? Why'd you do it?" And I say, "Because of my sinful nature." That's a cop-out, because I still have a will. And you see, here's the challenge. The challenge for me is to overcome my sinful nature with my will and make responsible decisions. And that's why the whole line of thinking at Texas State University, which is, "I was born with this desire, therefore it's good," is a crock.
Well, can I ask you then, do you believe that babies are born with an understanding of good versus evil, or do you believe that it was taught by human nature?
Good, very good question. I'll answer this, and then Stuart, you answer it. I am convinced that my little granddaughter, who is 6 months old, his daughter, has no understanding of what good and evil are. But I am convinced that when she comes of age, and I think for different people that's different, she will develop her own understanding of good and evil. Will that understanding be heavily influenced by her environment? Yes, ma'am. Will her understanding of good and evil be limited by her environment? No. Once again, smack. Sorry you're getting hit so many times today. You ask me, "Cliff, why'd you do it?" And I say to you, because I grew up in an environment that taught me that women who wear this color sweatshirt deserve to be smacked. It doesn't cut it. Because although my environment taught me that, I still have a conscience, a rational mind, and I am responsible before God to exercise that and to contradict my culture, to contradict my environment when I begin to realize my environment is wrong. Let me give you one quick example.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I played major college basketball. I was the worst guy on the team. I had good seats for every game. But I can promise you, almost, not everybody, but almost every guy who I played college basketball with had a very clear understanding of what human sexuality was all about. It was all about getting as many good-looking women into bed with them as they could. And so I had to exercise my conscience and my rational thinking. I had to ask, is that why God gave me my sexuality? To have sex with as many good-looking women as I can. And was it tempting to follow their example? I mean, that's the environment. I mean, shoot, we flew on a jet to different, played against UCLA, St. John's, NC State, Wake Forest. I mean, we were high flying. Okay, and so we all knew what we did at night. All right? So I had to make a decision. Is that the right way to live? Is that the right way to treat women? Is that the right way to express my sexuality? Or has God created my sexuality for a different reason? So I had to contradict my culture. And guess what? I've learned to respect people who contradict their culture and don't support racism. I work with some skinheads. And those skinheads grew up in a culture that said white superiority is clear. But there's some skinheads who said, no, it's wrong, and I'm not going to follow my culture. So that's how I think through that issue. All right, Stuart, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I would just add to that, because we've talked so much about kind of the moral, ethic side of things, it's important, again, to remember that the Christian faith is not about just be a good person, somehow you'll get into heaven. Just be a good person. You know, I'm a good person, so I'm in. No, to your question, many babies are born into, whether it's a crack baby or whether it's a baby born into a very religious home or a Christian, an Amish baby, let's just say. They're typically born into homes that are very tender, loving, as long as they don't leave, right, and they get excommunicated. Tender, loving, they get taught ethics. See, when you become a Christian, cynical, pharisaical, judgmental Christians will say, oh, well, you should be, say, 9 out of 10 on the ethic standard rung, in terms of you should be a great person. But no, Christ doesn't understand that the baby born into an Amish family versus the baby born into a crackpot family, this baby, when they come to know God from a very young age, they're going to be higher ethically in terms of how they live than this one who is, say, probably ethically living a pretty messed up life, at least at first, and yet they both have eternal life because they've accepted Christ. It's not like somehow this one is going to be higher in heaven,
Right.
like there's levels, than this one.
But then why give original sin to something that doesn't even have a working conscience yet?
I'm glad I heard you say give original sin one more time, because I heard you say that earlier.
Right.
Because God doesn't give original sin. See, I debated an atheist on YouTube not too long ago. He's a comedian. And that's what he kept pushing me on. Out of the book of Isaiah, briefly talks about how God creates evil. But if you look at the interpretation, what it means is God judges different people groups when they have done tremendous evil. So just like that passage with original sin, God doesn't give us original sin. He gives us free will, just like with Satan, to decide whether to worship him, to love him, to have a loving relationship with him, or to just go our own way, to live for ourselves, to live any old way we want. And then that, based off of Genesis 3 and what happened in the garden with Adam and Eve, what they decided that God, we're going to flip you off, we could care less about you, then they lived their own kind of way and original sin started. But to your point, absolutely, we're born into a messed up world, so we do have a readiness to sin factor, I believe you said that, from the earliest of ages. But babies will also be in heaven, because when David's baby dies, his wife was Bathsheba, he says, I will go to you, you will not come to me. So babies will be in heaven, based off of the question earlier on suffering.
Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Thank you so much for raising that. Yes, sir.
So I believe in God, and I turned Christian, and I know it's only because I'm American, and obviously the main religion in America is Christian.
Yeah.
So that's why I lean towards Christian. But I have a question. So
Not a good reason to lean towards Christian, okay? I
Okay,
appreciate your
maybe not.
honesty and your ability to analyze yourself.
Yeah.
Please do not believe in Jesus Christ because you grew up in America. Not a good reason.
No. I believe in God,
Good,
and I didn't before.
right?
But I'm still stuck on this whole Jesus thing.
Yes.
Because if he's sinless, like,
Yes.
is there a possibility that there will be another person born that's sinless? Or is Jesus the only one?
Well, Jesus is the only one that I know of so far who's been born sinless.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's highly unlikely that someone will be born sinless.
I guess my main question is I can believe in God because
Yep.
I know I can't see him factually, but I have a belief in him.
Yes?
But I don't know if I can believe in Jesus because he was on earth,
Yes.
and not everybody was there to prove whether he was sinless or not. Like, he wasn't surrounded by
Good
people
point.
24/7 saying...
Good point. Very good point. So
Yeah.
maybe Jesus did sin at some point.
Mhm.
But I have to follow the evidence. And the evidence is the Apostle John lived closely with Christ for 3 years. And in 1 John, John writes, in him is no sin. So you're right, John didn't live with Jesus intimately for 33 years. Just for 3 years.
Yeah.
But I can promise you, if a dude lives with Jesus for 3 years and can honestly say, I've never seen the guy sin, that's pretty impressive. Then in John chapter 8, Jesus looked into the faces of his enemies and asked them, which one of you can prove me guilty of sin? And his enemies were silent. Whoa! I can promise you my enemies can point out many times that I have sinned. Stuart?
Tacitus, Pliny the Younger, Josephus, many of these external sources, he was talking about internal sources with the Gospels, talk about not so much Jesus. Jesus was talked about in a way where he was a magician, Josephus talked about, how he was nasty. But then other sources contradicted him, saying that he just hated Christianity. That's why he was saying that about Jesus. So I would look more so at his followers. to talk about the sinlessness, because they were known for a few different things. One, against infanticide. They were pulling babies off of garbage heaps. Two, egalitarianism. They treated everybody equally. Three, they were made up mainly of slaves who were coming into the church. Fourthly, they were non-retaliatory. They were known in a very weird kind of way to actually not get revenge on other people groups, which was huge during that day. So I'd look at Christians as the evidence for Christ.
Okay, now I like you a lot.
So
You're being honest, so keep going.
yeah, so maybe this is just like the belief part, but I have a hard time believing that part. Like I can believe in God because I know I can never see it. We can never see God. Well, we can never see him like visually.
Is that why you believe in God? Because you can't see him?
No. I mean, I couldn't
Good.
get too deep into it, but it would take a long time. But I'm saying like, just reading the book and believing that there was a human that did that, I have a hard time believing that. Like, a really hard time.
Okay, but I'm pleading with you. You've got a good mind, sir. You articulate and think well. Now remember, you can't believe in God simply because you believe in God. You believe in God because there's evidence. A lot of it's common sense.
Well, my evidence is that there is an objective truth.
Good.
And that from that there is a good.
All right.
But I don't see Jesus in all that. I don't
Okay,
see
all
the
right.
equation of that.
Okay, but remember, we're starting off then with defining faith. You don't believe in God simply because you believe.
No.
You believe in God because there's evidence that God exists, right?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Now just do the same thing with Jesus. Read the Gospels,
Sure. Yes.
and yes, it's going to be different. The evidence that God exists is not historical. It's philosophical.
Right.
You see order and design, points to a designer. You see a moral absolute, an objective moral, points to a moral lawgiver. Okay, you've got your evidence. Now, when it comes to Jesus, it's not going to be philosophical. Why? Because he claimed to be God in human form. But I like that, because that means we can historically analyze Christ. Which is why Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 15, if Jesus Christ is not risen from the dead, we're idiots for believing in him. Because the veracity, the truthfulness of Christ is based on his claim, I'm going to die and rise from the dead. Ooh, that was a big mistake, Jesus. What's the mistake? You gave us a way to verify you or falsify you. If you don't rise from the dead, you, Jesus, are a liar. But if you did rise from the dead, you, Jesus, are the truth. I have a good buddy who's knocking it all out of the ballpark in Wall Street. And he went to Harvard. He's obviously a brilliant guy. He's a brilliant businessman. And he's doing very well on Wall Street. And he says to me with great honesty, when I was at Harvard, I was a moral relativist. But now as I look back on my life, I realize why I was a moral relativist. I wanted to have sex, and more sex with different sex partners. The only problem was I experienced guilt. And the way I dealt with my guilt was to say, morality's relative. I'm not doing anything wrong. There's no such thing as wrong and right. And so in university, we're at a time in life where we have a very strong sex drive. And in order to justify living a sexually promiscuous life, moral relativism is incredibly attractive. I was speaking at the University of Arizona, and I made some real attacks on rape. And I said it's embarrassing to look at the statistics on how many women in university get raped, how evil. Guy raises his hand and says, I date rape. And I said, you gotta be kidding me. How on earth do you justify that? And he says, very simple. I have a high testosterone level. And I said, well, sir, like it or not, that's really evil. That is totally dehumanizing a woman. I couldn't believe he was so honest, but I found it refreshing. All you got to do is look at the statistics, guys. An incredible number of young women are raped, and it's sick, it's evil, and the reason it's evil is not because I'm a nice white guy. It's evil because God created women and men in his image. He created our sexuality for a purpose, and that purpose is not to rape, not to date rape, but to learn to control yourself and to make a lifelong commitment to one person and enjoy sex within the context of a heterosexual marriage. Thanks for raising that. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. That's a completely unbelievable story for the pure fact of like somebody raising their hand and saying I raped someone and didn't either immediately get jumped or reported to the police or anything of that nature. That's just a completely implausible story to me, because I know for certain, like, if in a crowd of 20 to 30 people you say I rape people on the regular, that's not gonna go well for you. I can't help but think you made up that story.
Oh, all right. Thanks for your honesty. I appreciate that. I promise you, sir, the guy raised his hand. He didn't say I raped people. He said I have date raped and I support date rape. That's what he said.
That's
At the University of Arizona, Tucson, Arizona, several years ago. That happened. And I can promise you, sir, I would think if you were out here on Monday, the way a couple of students treated me, that you would understand that that is not so implausible. When I have a guy standing right here waving his backside in my face, that's pretty outrageous.
We're asking, were there any repercussions?
Like for him saying that he rapes people on the regular?
He didn't say I rape people on the regular. He said I've done date rape.
That is rape.
Okay, define date rape
just
then,
rape.
because it sounds like you think that they're different things.
That is just
Yes,
rape.
they are different in a person's mind. A person will use the phrase date rape to justify their evil. The same way a person will use eugenics to justify wiping out Jews.
No.
Oh, yes.
No.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what the Nazis did.
Date rape is drugging someone to rape them.
He literally admitted to rape.
Yes.
And nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
I can't.
That's not possible. I mean,
Well, then you're living in fantasy, ma'am
No,
and
I
sir.
think you're living.
No. He said it flat out. And I can promise you, for you to say what you say right now and to think that you don't judge would be a joke.
I judge someone who rapes people, yes.
No. You made a judgment call about me lying. That is amazing that you would be that judgmental. Incredible. You weren't there. I was at the University of Arizona in Tucson, Arizona, and the guy said it flat out. And for you to say, I'm lying, wow, where do you get off accusing me of lying when you don't have the faintest idea what the guy said? And by the way, I also used to live in South Boston, and I also used to confront white racists. And I can promise you those white racists in South Boston said a lot of really trashy things. And I also was almost beaten up and hit with, and almost got bricks hitting me in the head in South Boston because I stood against racism. And I can promise you, 100 years ago, if that student on Monday would have done to somebody what he did to me, he'd have been in trouble. He's not in trouble today, but he would have been in trouble. Culture does change, doesn't it? What's acceptable and what's unacceptable in a culture changes.
so you saying that him saying that he date rapes, are you saying that that's acceptable? Is that what you're saying?
How on earth, in light of the fact that I just said, that was absolutely evil. I confronted the guy and I said, sir, what you did was evil, in spite of the fact that you have a high testosterone level.
But you did nothing about it.
You didn't report him to the police?
You say it's evil, but you do nothing about it.
He just admitted verbally to raping someone. That is grounds to go to the police and say, hey, this student, take a picture of him, because you can do that, free nation. Take a picture of him and be like, this student on the University of Arizona campus
right,
told me he raped someone,
Yeah.
and that he partakes in date rape. You didn't go to the police and at least give them a description of the guy.
No, I did not.
So you're part of the problem then. You're just allowing
The police were already there. The security was already there. And the security chose to do nothing. It's a free speech area. We were having a dialogue, and the police chose to do nothing. But they were there, same way security's been around here. Security's been around here, and they don't stop people from saying what they say, okay?
Why does it seem that hypocrites are more relevant in society today, or at least more obvious than those who are not hypocrites?
Because you haven't watched carefully enough all the humble followers of Christ on this campus who serve the poor, feed the hungry, just the way Jesus did. You don't need me to tell you about Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman. Go out and watch the movie, Harriet Tubman, produced in 2019, about a black slave who escaped slavery, and then due to her faith in Christ, she went back south. She went back and rescued hundreds of slaves from slavery because of her faith in Christ. Come on, wake up, you guys. Smell the coffee. There are followers of Christ all around who are doing incredible deeds in obedience to Jesus Christ.
Right. Well, but my point, I think, maybe, and a lot of people hold this belief, like, what can we do about this hypocritical Christianity? Because it seems to be a pretty big problem that seems to be impacting a lot of people's lives in a real negative way.
Yeah.
And so, as somebody who's, like, having this platform and really, like, talking about, you know, how great Jesus is, I respect that. I 100% respect you for that, and I respect you to have that belief. But I think that you've got to recognize that whenever other people hear that, they're expecting you to turn around and acknowledge, like, okay, but here's the work that we got to do, okay? Here's all the kids that keep getting diddled, and this is what we're going to do about it, okay? Here's the all the homophobia that happens. Here's what we're going to do about that, you know? I think that that's what people want to hear.
Good. I am convinced that the ultimate solution to America's problem is not going to occur on Tuesday. And it's not going to occur in 2024 either. I'm saying the ultimate solution to America's problems is Jesus Christ, not a political agenda. I don't care if it's Republican or Democrat.
Why did God allow Hitler to kill 6 million Jews in Germany? Why does God let normal, healthy, innocent children die of natural disasters and severe diseases and war?
Ultimately,
Doesn't this prove that God is disinterested in human affairs? And if he is disinterested in human affairs, why would anybody worship him?
When God became a human being, what happened to him? Okay, now he's a classic example of what I'm talking about. He asked a very hard, very serious question, and before he even allowed me to answer, he walked away. Is that being open-minded? No, he didn't ask a question. He made a point. But he disguised it in the form of a question. That is intellectual dishonesty.
So I'd like to hear the answer. I'm so sorry, you go ahead.
I was just saying I'd like to hear the answer to that question. Why should we worship him if he either doesn't care if we die or if he's not all-powerful?
I appreciate your honesty. First point, when we say that God is all-powerful, we do not mean that everything that happens is God's will. Why? The all-powerful God chose to limit his power by creating us with a free will. So if I walk up to her, smack her beautiful face, and then turn to you and say, God made me do it, I'm a liar, I'm a con artist. God gave me a hand for a purpose, to respect her and to love her. But because I have a free will, if I choose to abuse this hand, roll it into a fist and send it crashing into her beautiful face, and then have the audacity to say, God made me do it, I'm a liar and I'm a con artist.
Yeah, I have an issue with how you're characterizing moral relativists.
Yep.
It seemed pretty disingenuous saying that, like, there's no basis at all that anything can come around because of cultural norms, when moral relativism could be based within a specific ideal. Probably the biggest thing I can harken back to is as society was forming, with just humans or even Neanderthals or Australopithecines, there was a founding moral there, which would be the good for society, the good for our tribe. Now, that's obviously evolved pretty far from where we're at right now, but to say that a moral relativist can justify Nazi Germany, which a bad one probably could, but just as a bad Christian could inspire the Crusades to go kill a bunch of Arabs, you probably shouldn't be judging it based on just the bad apples, right?
My simple point is, all of my atheist friends are good people. They want to do good, a lot of good. But they have no intellectual foundation for good versus evil. Because if there is no mind prior to the human mind, then it's the human mind that defines good and evil, which means it is relative, which means if this human mind defines good and evil one way, and this human mind contradicts her but defines it another way, she's not right, she's not right, she's not wrong, she's not wrong. If moral relativism is true, it is totally arbitrary, good and evil. It's like, do you prefer broccoli or asparagus? It's a taste, it's a prejudice. Do you prefer murdering people or not murdering people? It's a taste. The reason that you should believe in God is because you know that that's rubbish. And you can't live that way. Which is God knocking on the door of your mind saying, wake up and smell the coffee. There are objective moral absolutes, and you know it. Every atheist knows it, every agnostic knows it. But then think, how can there be a moral absolute? The only way is if there is some type of God to create and define it. That's all I've been trying to say.
Okay. I think we'd probably end up just having to disagree on that part.
All right, fine. Part. We disagree.
But another question leading with that is, so like when Jesus died, specifically right after there was an explosion of different Christian denominations, some of which died out, some of which eventually went on to be the Catholic Church. How could you say that the taste of broccoli and asparagus would be objective when we don't know all the interpretations of Christ that came around when it first evolved from just a sermon, from the Sermon on the Mount? So if somebody only speaks English, they ought to read the Hebrew Bible to be correct?
False.
Okay, why?
Because translation is a study that involves integrity or a lack of integrity.
Okay.
And if a translator has done their homework and studied 2 languages, and if they're a person of integrity, they can translate from French to English, from Spanish to English, from Greek to English, from Hebrew to English. And translation is a very precise study. Now, is it absolutely like mathematics? No, it is not like mathematics, because you're taking grammar, syntax, vocabulary of one language, and you're translating into a different language with different grammar, different syntax, different word meanings.
Okay.
So it's not as precise as a mathematician would like, but it's a very precise study, but it's different from math.
Yeah, I just wanted that concession. That
You bet, absolutely. You bet.
Well, the whole point of Christianity and believing in a God is you having faith in Him. You having faith and everything's going to be all right.
Okay. But wait a second. There's such a thing as sincere faith and insincere faith. If I tell you I believe in Jesus and I hate his guts, guess what? I'm a phony Christian. I'm a liar. So if I say I believe in Jesus, I better love this man and not hate him. Because if I hate him, I'm violating what Christ taught. I'm a liar.
What did that have to do with what I just said?
Well, it's not just enough to have faith. The question is it sincere faith? It better be sincere faith, because there's a boatload of insincere faith shown in just what this guy on the bike was talking about, Christian hypocrites. You know that, man? It's hypocritical faith, right?
I feel what you're saying. But like,
all right.
I'm not really clicking right now.
All right, but then let's go on to the next step. I believe in Jesus. Okay. And you ask me, Cliff, why do you believe in Jesus? And I say, because I have faith. That's not a good answer.
Why it ain't?
Because there better be a reason.
I feel you can live how you want to live. Like, you can, like, listen to me what I'm saying.
Yep.
I can say I'm Christian,
right?
But I can be a hypocrite. I feel what you're saying on that.
Right.
But what's the point in believing in a God if you don't have faith in the God is real?
You're right. You got to have faith. You're right. But please think through this word faith.
Okay.
Tomorrow morning, I'm going to get on an airplane.
Okay.
Fly to New York City.
Yeah.
When I'm standing there at Austin Airport, can I prove to you that that hunk of metal is going to bring me safely to New York?
Okay.
No, I can't. But is there evidence that that hunk of metal was put together by reliable mechanics? Yeah. So based on that evidence, I'm going to take a step of faith.
Okay.
And I'm going to make a commitment to a hunk of metal to fly me through the sky to New York City.
Okay.
You see, there's faith. Biblical faith is evidence plus commitment.
Okay.
That's why Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 15, if Jesus Christ is not risen from the dead, our faith is bankrupt, false, foolish. But because Jesus did rise from the dead, our faith in him is good, reliable faith. I don't believe in God because I'm scared to die. I believe in God because the evidence of your eye convinces me there's got to be an intelligent mind behind you.
You got it. Good to meet you, man.
if I say, ma'am, I've really enjoyed talking with you, I'm making a judgment call, right? I'm saying, I've really enjoyed your respect, your politeness, thank you. If I say to you, I really don't appreciate the way you were disrespectful, that's a judgment call. That is different from, your motives are bing, bing, bing. I don't know what your motives are. I do know that you were either respecting me or disrespecting me, at least that's what you communicated, but I don't know what your motives are. What you did 10 years ago, I don't have the faintest idea. And so if I tell you, after you tell me what you did 10 years ago, if I look you in the face and say, you're lying, that's incredibly judgmental. Because I don't know what you did 10 years ago. Okay? So, we're out here making a lot of judgment calls, saying, this is true, this is false. But we're not out here saying, this is what motivates you, this is what you did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or didn't do, and if you tell me you did it, you're a liar. No, we're not doing that. We're presenting Christ and saying, the evidence is, he's the truth. If you disagree with him, please tell us what you believe in and why you believe it. So we're having that kind of discussion, but we're not saying you're evil because you don't know what you believe in.
But do you understand how it might make some people feel like you're saying that?
Oh, no doubt about it. We live in a culture where, when President Trump won the election a few years ago, college students went to crying chambers for counseling. When my dad was 18 years old, he sat up on a mountain in Switzerland and looked at Hitler's panzer divisions about to storm into Switzerland. Fortunately for my dad, they didn't. All right? So there is a big cultural change from 18-year-olds getting ready to go fight in World War II versus a culture where college students are saying, please help me. I'm emotionally falling apart because Donald Trump won the election. There's a big difference. So yes, I can understand why people will say, Cliff, you standing out here saying Jesus Christ is the truth hurts me, it offends me. So yeah, I understand that. So if tomorrow I feel like a woman, does that make me a woman?
Sure, if you want to be.
Okay. I would argue that male and female is a biological thing.
Well, man and woman and male and female aren't the same thing. Gender and sex aren't the same, even by definition.
I would insist that female means a woman, male means a man.
Why?
And I would argue that if I wake up tomorrow and feel like a woman, my feelings are out of touch with reality. Because in reality, I'm not a woman. In reality, I'm a man.
Why?
Why?
Yeah, why is that reality?
Because that is what the language male and female means, and that is my experience of reality.
Okay.
If I feel like Superman tomorrow, that does not make me Superman.
Why
if
not?
I feel like, because I can't fly, and if I try and jump off the side of that building because I think I'm Superman, I'll kill myself by splattering all of the cement down there. And if I feel tomorrow like I'm Albert Einstein, in reality, I'm not Albert Einstein. I have nowhere near the intellectual strength in mathematics and science that Einstein had.
Okay, but you're listing characters and specific people. Genders and characters and specific people aren't the same thing.
Well, I think
That's
gender
not
is very physical. You're either male or female. Very biological.
If you look up the definition, it's very different, sex versus gender.
Just because I feel something doesn't make it true.
Sort of. I feel like you still didn't really address what I was saying about sex and gender.
Fine, ma'am. So if you want to call yourself a horse, that's fine with me. You're a horse. I love horses, okay? If you want to call yourself they or it or he or she, go right ahead. Call yourself whatever you want to. And I respect your right to call yourself whatever you want to. I don't understand it because I don't think you're a horse. I don't think you're a they. I think you're a person that I'm trying to take seriously. And based on what I see, I don't think you're a guy. Maybe you are.
I'm not a guy.
All right, okay. So I would call you she. But if you don't like that, tell me what you want me to call you and I'll try and call you it.
Whatever pronouns, I don't care. But
all right.
I don't know. I'm confused. If you're so into like seeking truth, I'm confused why you don't have a reason for why you say that sex and gender aren't different when...
Well, what is the difference? Just to educate me. Tell me, what's the difference between gender and sex?
Sex is your like reproductive organs, and gender is the like social constructs and like things associated to that. So, is a person going to go to hell or face some sort of issues if they identify as gay, if they are intersex and choose not to have an operation, if they choose not to adhere to normal gender norms?
No, nobody goes to heaven because they say, I'm a guy, or I'm a girl, or I'm they. It's not the issue. The issue is, how do you as a person respond to Jesus Christ, respond to God? That's the issue.
Okay, so if they decide to be in a relationship with a man or a woman, and they're also a man or a woman, like, is that a sin that is going to send them to hell because they choose to do that? Are they still not responding to Jesus Christ in the right way just because they want to love someone else?
I have not responded to Jesus Christ in the right way. I am a sinner.
Okay.
I have perverted the gift of human sexuality that God has given me. Through heterosexual lust, I have perverted that gift. I don't deserve heaven, but God loves this sinner so much that he sent his son Christ to die on a cross to forgive me for my wrongdoing. I have put my faith in Christ, and he's forgiven me and given me eternal life. Now, just because someone has twisted the gift of sex differently from me doesn't mean that they don't need Christ just as much as I do. So the question is, are we willing to repent, ask Christ for forgiveness, and put our faith in him, or are we just going to go and rationalize our wrongdoing? I mean, it's not difficult for me to understand why prostitutes that I've worked among say, listen, Cliff, it's the best way for me to earn money, so I'm going to be a prostitute. I understand that, but I plead with them, that is not what God intended you to do with your beautiful body. So, why would I choose to be a follower of Christ? I choose to be a follower of Christ because I look at all the options that I'm presented with, and to be honest with you, ma'am, the options that I was presented with most starkly was materialism. I grew up in a very wealthy suburb of New York City, and it was very clear what God is. Your stock portfolio and your bank account. That's what's ultimately worthy of your worship. And if you don't make a lot of money, you are a loser. Secondly, I was presented with the option of hedonism. All of my friends did drugs and slept around. And they kind of made fun of me for not. So that I had to seriously consider that as an option. It was right in my face. Another option I was faced with was atheism and agnosticism, because I had a number of professors who were atheists and agnostic, and they really tried to convince me that atheism or agnosticism was the way to go. So I looked at all those clearly, as I was able to, but I also looked at Jesus Christ, and I read the Gospels, and I began to look at my life, my experience of life, and my thinking, and my observation of other lives. And I became convinced over a long period of time that Jesus Christ was so superior to every other option. It's a no-brainer. A no-brainer. Then I began to speak on college campuses, and I began to realize, you know, some of these professors are a lot more intelligent and a lot more educated than I am. So maybe they know something that I don't know. And so I began to ask very intelligent professors. We're talking MIT, Columbia, University of Pennsylvania, the Ivy League schools. We're talking about Stanford. And I would ask them two questions. The first question was, what are you living for? And the second question was, what's the evidence that what you are living for is true? And ma'am, the answers that I got to those two questions were scary. They were so poorly thought out. They were backed by almost no evidence. I became more and more convinced Jesus Christ is the truth. Now, if you don't understand what I'm saying, just listen to the people who've been challenging me out here. What people like to do is poke holes in Christianity, in Jesus Christ. Okay? Fair enough, no problem. But you see, here's the problem. The problem is, after you finish poking holes, you got to go home the same way I got to go home. You got to put your head on a pillow and go to sleep, and I got to put my head on a pillow and go to sleep. What are you living for, buddy? And what's the evidence that what you are living for is true? Some of you should be really squirming right now, because you know very, very well that you have never asked, what is the evidence that whatever it is I've chosen to live for is true?